You're listening to Spainfully Honest, the podcast where me, Paul,
and me, Catherine, talk about what it's really like living in Spain.
Each week we'll share stories, tips, and honest conversations about life in Spain, good, the bad, and everything in between.
Whether you live in Spain, or you're thinking about moving, or you just want to know a little bit more, you're in the right place.
So grab a coffee and let's get Spainfully Honest.
Hello, and welcome to episode 12 of Spainfully Honest.
12 episodes already. Can't be bad.
So today we're talking about retiring in Spain, probably one of the most talked about and questioned topics on Facebook or social media. So we thought we would get an expert. So welcome, Sue Airy.
A retired expert.
On retirement.
Yes.
Yeah.
You are an expert on retirement, I think. You're the best person we could have gotten on the podcast.
Well,
Some of them are most active, I'd say.
Definitely.
And that's one of the things that comes up on the Facebook and things is people saying, you know, what is this to do? What we're going to do? I mean, I don't suppose it's any different if you retire in the UK, but
Yeah, I guess.
it is different from what to do in a different country. And, you know, well, if there's more opportunity, there's probably less opportunity, I suppose, or harder to find.
Yes, I would say harder to find. And that's why, you know, talking to someone like Sue, who has kind of ferreted out lots of different places to go and things to do, just kind of highlights to people, if they are thinking about moving over, all the different things that you can do when you move to Spain. Can you tell us a little bit about what you did before you retired in Spain, and a little bit about why you chose Spain to retire in?
but what I don't have you got really. When I was thinking about it, I thought, really, you have to go back to the beginning, don't you? Really, in terms of work and what you did before you retired. And it's quite a long way back, actually, sadly. So I did it. I thought about this. I did it a few times, you know, because I thought, well, no, I won't show like that. But actually, there is a lot of it has a bearing on how you end up. You know, the things that happen to you, or that you do in your life, obviously affects you, your personality, and things that happen later on. So I was more or less forced to leave school at 16 by my dad, because my sister, who had gone into the sixth form, we both went to girls' member school. My sister, who went into the sixth form, got pregnant, and she had to leave. And so he was sure that I was definitely not going to be allowed to go into the sixth form. So I had to leave school at 16. So I'd done my GCEs, and I'd also done short-term typing and bookkeeping. And I went straight away into a job in the factory where he worked. He got me a job in the wages department, which was quite good for later on, because I was able to do it DAYE, you know, as you earn. And I understood it. And so when my husband was self-employed, I was able to do his books and things like that. So I started as a wages folk. In those days, I'm talking about the sort of 60s now, 1960s. People got engaged pretty quickly. It was the thing to get engaged. And I married pretty quickly. So I was married by the time I was 19, and I had Paul when I was 20.
That's me.
That's Paul.
My mum didn't mention it.
No, and so I was at home with Paul for a couple of years, but at that time, as it happened, teachers were becoming scarce. I mean, it peaks and troughs teaching. It does, you know, sometimes there's true male and sometimes there's not enough. And at that time, there was a shortage. So they actually reduced the sort of entrance exams that you had to have. And as long as you were going to learn to teach a subject that it hadn't been possible to do an A-level in, you could actually start at the teacher training college, as long as you've got your qualifications for English and maths, etc. So I started at a teacher training college in Chorley, where I lived in Burnley, you know, where I was born. And so I went every day. So Paul went to nursery, and he was quite happy there, actually. And then I went to teacher training for 3 years, and I took drama and sociology. So at that time, you know, that was why it was easier to get into teaching. I trained to teach infants because I had a child boy. And when I first then started applying for jobs, I saw this job that was in the secondary school, and it was teaching of reading to children with special educational needs. And that was the main thrust of the job. So I applied for it and got it. So although I trained to teach infants, I was actually teaching secondary, and I stayed in secondary all my teaching career. So I started in school near Burnley, and I was there for 11 years. And during that time, the government had invited people from Pakistan to come over and work in the cotton mills and the mills. And so where I was teaching in Briarfield, near Burnley, there was a big factory called Smith and Nephews. They were responsible for producing sanitary equipment and things like that. And so the men from Pakistan came over, bringing the boys with them. The women and the girls didn't come. Initially, it was just the men. And so because I was teaching children who couldn't read, then it was also assumed I would teach Asian children and teach English as a second language. So I did a diploma in English as a second language, and I was made head of department as quick as that, really. So I stayed in the school for 11 years, and I was also head of year 11. Paul was at the same school.
Oh.
Yeah. He could never get away with not wearing his uniform. Anything like that. I couldn't sky or anything like that.
Into the football team. That was terrible.
But we had to move house to get Paul into the school because it wasn't where we lived, wasn't in the catchment area. So, you know, there were no favours. Anyway, and then I got a job in a school in Blackburn where it was about 90% Asian intake, again, based on the qualifications that I had, really. And it was the time of the National Front. And we had to escort children off the premises at times. It was quite serious, you know, quite a sad time. It was interesting that when I started there, the head said to me, you know, the parents never come in, they don't come in, they're not interested in the children's education. It wasn't true. They've been sending the letters home in English. The parents spoke Gujarati or Urdu or whatever and couldn't read the letters or the kids are reading them. One of the first jobs I did was to get an interpreter in the school, and we sent all the information home in various languages. Well, the first parents' evening, the head was like Gandhi in the middle of all these Asian families who were interested in education, and you know, okay. So I was head of faculty there, and it was a school. It was a school that had been a grammar school, so we were still singing "Onward, Christian Soldiers" in assembly, and so we had to change that. And there was a real resistance to having to change, you know, but we got there. I wasn't there very long, and the head showed me an advert for a school down in Folkestone, which was the furthest away we could have got, really, for a deputy headship. In the school that I ended up in, Penn Valley, it was just going, it had got a new head teacher, and they were just about to introduce children with physical disabilities into the school. And so they wanted somebody, a deputy, who had knowledge of teaching children with special education needs and so on. So anyway, I applied and got the job. So we moved right down to, it was a good time really, we moved right down to Folkestone. It was a good time really because Paul was by this stage going up to uni. Roy and my husband was self-employed, and they were hoping to build the motorway through where his premises were. So it was a good time. So I was there at Penn Valley for not very long really, for about 4 years. And then the head decided he wanted to go back to Derby, so the headship came up, and the governors asked me to apply. But at the same time, Kent, the authority, was setting up an inspection service, and they wanted inspectors for children with special educational needs. So although I'd applied for the headship, I also applied for this job as special education needs inspector. And the interview came first and I got it. And I just thought, it's something else, it's something else to try. So I was an inspector for Kent, which was divided into 6 regions, and I was in South Kent. And then we kept being reorganised, it was just part of the force, really. I was advising and inspecting schools. Kent was a big authority, so it was possible to inspect a school within your authority that you didn't know. So you were able to be objective. But then the government introduced Ofsted inspectors, and we all had to train to be Ofsted inspectors. I was then appointed as senior inspector advisor, and my patch was South Kent, which included Folkestone, Dover, Ashford, quite a big area really. A couple of years after that, they reorganised again, and the authority split into 2 authorities. And so they took the senior posts out. And so the 6 of us were offered redundancy. And it was a really good package because of this split into unitary authorities. So I took early retirement quite early on, really. But then I panicked thinking, what will I do? What will I do? And so I did all sorts, and eventually began working independently, self-employed, as an inspector and advisor for the London boroughs, because you weren't that far away in Folkestone. So I was doing that, and then the head teachers of the area that I'd worked for, the 6 head teachers got together and said they wanted to buy me as their inspector advisor. So that was the last job I was doing. I was working for the 6 secondary schools, advising, inspecting, interviewing, and it was great. I loved it, actually. So I didn't particularly want to retire or anything, but we'd already got the house in Spain, you see. That's when I decided, I would retire and I'd come out to Spain. Quite a long story, really. But why Spain particularly? Well, at the same time as when I first started teaching, being an inspector, that was 1989. One of the teachers who worked in the school had a hotel in Dymchurch, and I told Paul about it, and Paul said, I've always fancied living in a hotel.
Yeah, like you do. Watching that Chimney Falls the Tower.
Yeah, I think so. So we decided to buy it. And then Alison, whose hotel it was, said she would buy our house, so we did a swap. I mean, it was all legal and everything. So at the same time that I was learning to be an inspector for Kent, I was also living in a hotel, which Paul and his partner were running. And Roy, my husband, he was training to be a driving instructor. So it was really busy, really busy. And so we'd had all those, we'd had those years. And during the time that we were in the hotel, we were able, because we lived where we lived, we were able to go over to France quite frequently. So we decided that eventually, when we sold the hotel, we would go and live in France. But then what happened was, as we were going into France, we realised that actually the climate wasn't much different.
Yeah.
To get a better climate, you need to go further and further south. And so we then thought, well, perhaps we should look to Spain. So in the meantime, we sold the hotel and we were living in an apartment. And just by chance, really, there was a company called Atlas who were going around the country, touring and doing exhibitions about moving to Spain. And this hotel was quite near to where we lived in Peru. And I just went in one Sunday afternoon when they were doing an exhibition and saw what they were offering. And they did this where they would fly you out to Spain and pay for your accommodation and everything, take you to various properties. I went back home and I said, right, well, you know, shall we do that? He was a bit reluctant, you know, not ready really. And I said, well, let's just go and have a look. Let's go and have a look. Let's do it. So we came over to Spain in January with this company, Atlas. And we stayed in their hotel. And how Atlas worked, they put people together who had the same sort of amount of money that they wanted to spend on a house. And they took them out in minibuses. And so we made some friends. It was only 3 days, but we made some friends in that. And they took us to various places. They were just plots. They were just plots of land. You know, there might have been one show house, you know. But they took us right from Torrevieja through to Murcia to have a look at properties. So that's when we really decided, yes, you know, we're going to move to Spain.
Yeah. That was like a real thing at that time, wasn't it? Companies bringing you over to have a look. I remember it was all over Dublin. People would be going and arranging to go to Spain to have these viewings of different companies. Yeah, it was such a thing.
Well, actually, a couple who were in our minibus were from Ireland. Yeah. And they were real characters, you know. Really. And he'd been a prison officer, you see, so they were looking for, to have another home. Yeah. He got the home through the job, but needed a new home. They called it Wine and Dining and Signing. You know, that's what. But we said, right, well, we're not going to check any credit cards with us or anything, so we can't put a deposit down with nothing.
Yeah, need the checkbook.
Yeah, need the checkbook on, because actually, you know, you can get swept into it, swept along with it.
Yeah, couple of sangrias in.
And then they did. You know, they took me to play. I mean, we were there 3 days, but we had some really nice food and nice places. Lovely.
The good thing is they're showing the areas, don't they?
Yeah.
You might not necessarily like the plots in the middle of nowhere, or the plots have nothing on them, but they do take you to the nice places to try and persuade you to go to the area, don't they? And for more and places like that.
I mean, I must admit, I'd never heard of Murcia, and I'd never heard of Amanda. I know it's in the area where football is trained into, but I'd never heard of it.
I mean, I think people are only starting to hear about Murcia, to be honest. I mean, I hear people all the time still calling it hidden gem, the hidden gem of Murcia. You know, you see that all the time these days. And I think the footballers liked La Manga more so because they could come and totally get away from it. I think that was part of the attraction of La Manga by footballers as well, because there wasn't that many people around. Like, they weren't overcome with fans or anything, you know. Yeah.
And it's still very well maintained. I mean, I went there a couple of months ago, and it is fantastic still.
It's gorgeous.
So that's true. Yeah. Like you say, it's an unknown area, but I think a lot of the reason for that is there's not a lot of hotels. So, you know, you can't, you won't have been here on a holiday as such.
Yeah.
More so now because of rentals of properties.
Yeah.
But prior to that, you wouldn't come on a holiday hotel. If you went in the TUI brochure, there's not many hotels in this area that you would come to. So I think that's one of the reasons.
And that was something that we used to do. Did you do that as well? My mum and dad would go to what were they, like, holiday exhibitions or something, like expos. And you'd come home with reams of magazines, and you would sit there and you would flick through the magazines, and then they would, like, pick their holiday for whatever the following year. And so, if you haven't got, like, a big hotel, like, in the
region, going to come to this area. And also prior to that, because I was in the Costa del Sol sort of a few years before that, and it was the end of timeshare. And it was all, up until that point, whenever we'd been on holiday to Spain or whatever, it was always people trying to sell timeshare. Yeah. Well, that time, so the end of the 90s was the end of timeshare, really. And then the idea was, well, why are you timesharing? Why don't you buy something? Yeah. So it was quite a big thing, and that's where Atlas sort of got on the back of it.
Yeah, it was a good idea, that really. Yeah. That was a great idea. Yeah.
There were quite a few different companies around.
Massive is a lot.
Yeah. And what was it about Murcia that you liked when you kind of first got introduced to it?
Well, the thing was, we had a horse, Timing, it's called timing, it's enormous.
It was massive.
It was actually, it was, we had him sort of tested for the Guinness Book of Records because you could get a Shetland pony underneath them. It was enormous. When we moved down to Folkestone, we had a boat for years because Roy was a skin diver, you know, in sabbatical. And we'd always gone up to Newcastle and Northumberland, because there are a lot of wrecks there, that's why. And also down to Devon, around those areas. So when we moved to Folkestone, we had great plans for doing also. But it was for skin diving, it was very sandy. And there was nothing much to see. And also, it was a very busy shipping line. So we weren't using the boat much. So we decided to start a new hobby. We decided to start riding. Well, I mean, for me, it was a disaster really, because that first year I just started to teach, you know, as a deputy head, and all these plans and all these things we were going to do. And I got on this horse and it bolted, and I didn't have a bridle or a saddle or anything. And it started bucking, and I was thrown and broke my back. I didn't know that I'd broken my bones, you know. I got up, and I was so lucky, retrospectively. I realised how lucky I was. Anyway, yeah, I recovered, you know. But the thing was that Roy carried on, so he was really interested. So we bought horses whilst we were living down in Folkestone. And he became a good rider, an avid rider, really. And, you know, we had a horse park, we had all sorts. So we needed something with land when we were thinking of moving over. At that time, we were going to bring the horse with us. Excuse me. So we started looking, but when we were here with Atlas, we realised more or less straight away we didn't want a new property, and but we didn't know what we wanted really. Anyway, just by chance, as we were coming back one day in the Needles, we saw there was an estate agent nearby. On the last morning, when Atlas realised we weren't going to buy one, they just lost interest in us, you know, fine. And we went to this estate agent, and she was English, as it just so happened, married to a Spanish chap. And so we explained to her what we wanted. She said, well, look, if you come back and you come and you can stay with me, I'm just setting up an apartment in the basement of my house in Los Balcones. And she said, you can stay there and I'll get you some viewings. So that's what we decided to do. What took me by surprise was that Bo said to, you know, just before, about a month before, you know, could we come with you? That was Bo and Jane, and they had Millie, who was one. So I contacted Linda and this estate agent, said, is it okay if there's a few, you know, baby? And no, that's fine, that's fine. So we came over, didn't we, all of us?
Yeah.
And she got us some properties.
She had a finder in the sort of Valle del Sol, Balsicas area of Murcia. And what he was the waterman and the dogman. So he used to supply water to properties that had their own water tanks, but also he was the dog feeder of the security dogs, and he supplied the dog. So you could hire a dog, and he would go around. I don't think he went every day, every few days, and feed these dogs that were affected with security to country properties. But because of that, he knew a lot of people. And so he became our sort of guide, and we went to loads of places, didn't we? And you'd never find them, you know, you'd never find them yourself. He took us to different places, and for whatever reason, they weren't quite right. They were too expensive or too big or not big enough or whatever. And then on the last day, we were about to come home, weren't we? So
we'd gone through all that, and then we decided we'd seen this one in Horadada. And it was a new one. It was completely the opposite to what we were looking for. But it had two floors, didn't it? So we could see that, you know, if Paul and Jane and the children came over, they'd have their own space upstairs, and there was a big yard, and so we could put cars in there and everything. So, and it was new, it was lovely, it was near the sea. So we were going for that. I mean, I was, yeah, that's how I was paying a deposit on the Monday when we got back. And
then sort of, we were flying, I think, about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And Linda get phoned us like 10 in the morning and said, I found another one. You've got to go and have a look at it. And that's when we went to the one that my mum bought in the end. It was effectively what we were looking for. It had land, it was a villa, and you know, it was the right thing. So we literally bought it on the spot.
on the Monday, I sent the deposit. It was great because it had, it was very separate. I still haven't really seen one like it since.
It was on an organisation, but only of 21 houses, with a lot of land on each house.
Yeah.
So you did have neighbours, but you didn't have neighbours. They weren't overlooking you or anything. So it was different.
Yeah.
And like my mum says, it still is quite different. There's not many that have been built like that
Yeah.
because land is valuable.
Yeah.
You put a lot more houses on them there, and so that allowed us then. So that was 2000.
2001.
That allowed me and my wife and children to come over and have somewhere to live. And so that's what we did. We had somewhere to stay. So, and then my mum came. So getting back to subject,
Yeah.
you came over when you retired officially in 2005. And
Yeah, well, from 2001, from when we bought it to 2005, when we moved out, because we were coming over for, well, Paul had come over in a couple of years, didn't you? So we've been coming over and using it, and for holidays and things like that. Before Paul moved over, I did let it for a year, actually. A really nice couple, you know, they were great. If anything went wrong, they contacted me and we sorted it. And it was very rural. I mean, it was in a wood. It had originally been a pine wood. And so, and it was built in the 70s. And so, you know, things did go wrong, like the water, especially with the water pipes were elderly, you know. And
Really.
it only needed a really dramatic downpour. It could shift a water pipe, and then that would affect, you know, everybody's water. We'd had about 4 years really of using the property, and so we knew its little vagaries really. We decided that it was too hot, because we'd stayed in August. It was too hot to bring a horse from England because he was a Danish cold blood, and it wouldn't have been fair. So we couldn't bring the horse, but we still brought all our furniture in the horse box.
yeah, that was really useful. Yeah,
Yeah,
you can fix that for us.
we did.
Yeah, and the boat behind it. Tell them about how.
It was 2005 when I retired. I mean, I retired a few times really, so I retired again, and then came out. Roy, as I say, he'd been a driving instructor. He was hoping to continue his driving here in Spain, but you know, we hadn't been here long before we realised that it was very different. Taking your driving test in Spain is very different to how you take a driving test in the UK. There's a lot, I don't know whether it's still true, but certainly there was a lot of emphasis on the theory of driving. People had to pass all these questions, and well, you probably know better than I, what it's like now. And not too much time actually driving, you know. So he never did it. So we came over in 2005, and that was it, we were coming to live. We were lucky that Paul and Jane and the children were here, so we did have a family, you know, straight away. I'd been on this Action Aid project, which was, I don't know if it's still going now, Action Aid, but it was a charity. And if you raised enough money, you could actually go with the money, if you like, and see how it was being spent through Action Aid. And so the one that we decided to do, my friend and I, was to go to the Himalayas, the foothills of the Himalayas, and India and Delhi. And so I'd only been here a week, and then I was going back to the UK again, going on this Action Aid challenge, which was walking the Himalayas. We went back for 3 weeks, so that, and of course it was a big thing. It was a big thing. It was just incredible. So when I came back here, I was glad I was coming back to Spain rather than just going back to England, because it really did impact. I mean, our particular project, they were spending the money in Delhi on a home for Indian women and children who'd been thrown out or abandoned. So we went to the project, saw how they were becoming self-sufficient and helping one another to survive what had happened to them. So, so it did have an impact. And it was great. We went to the Dalai Lama's palace. It was still, sadly. So we didn't actually see, but we went up there to Dharamsala. And in the foothills of the Himalayas, we were camping. I mean, we never actually got undressed. It was so cold. It was November. It was so cold. We didn't get undressed. We just used baby wipes. So when we came back, I was staying in a hotel. We flew back into Heathrow. And then I had to get from Gatwick back to Spain. So I had a night in the hotel in Gatwick, and the bathwater, I can't describe it. Yeah. It was filthy. So I was glad that I was coming here to Spain because it was going to be something completely different. If I'd been going back to the UK, I don't know, it really did make a difference to me. Anyway, but I came back and more or less straight away, I started work. I think it was, more or less in 2005, 2006, maybe.
Work out when you came to Spain?
Well, I don't know, you want to
Yeah.
say it?
So came and worked for us. So here we had the furniture store, so she came and worked for us. Initially, sort of helping with the maintenance, cleaning and things, but then we realised that with the population that was coming over, she had a very good relationship with a lot of the people that were coming in the furniture. And so she became a salesperson.
Yeah. And I mean, I obviously wasn't planning on doing that particularly, because I had done an online qualification for English as a second language in Cambridge, and that was my plan. Not that I wanted to work. I didn't need to work full time financially, but I was just aware that to go from working absolutely every day, to not working is a big step.
Yeah.
And the other thing about retiring is that you can lose your identity, because if you think about it, the first thing that people say to you, new people, when you meet new people, and they say, "And what do you do?" Yeah. And
even more so here.
Yeah.
I think, because it's even more interesting than it would be in the UK to know if somebody's doing something like that.
So what do you do? This question. And I personally think that it can affect men more than women, really, in many respects. This, and what do you do? What do you do? It's like, and who are you? Isn't it? Really? So that was my plan. I was going to teach English as a second language. But then, of course, this opportunity came to work in the shop, and I loved it. I really did.
You met a lot of people.
Yeah.
Every day, somebody new, somebody different coming in, and from different, obviously different areas, because we covered such a big area, and different reasons behind coming, different why they come, why they were going to live, if they were going to live there, whether they were going to live there permanently or go back. So we need to meet a lot of people and get a lot of personal experience. I mean, over the 20 years in the end that we were doing the business, we had over 10,000 customers. That's a lot of people that we met, all with different stories.
Yeah.
And part of the sort of idea in the business was to know why people are here and what they're doing, to try and help them better with what furniture they have. I know it sounds ridiculous, but there's quite a lot of people coming for different reasons, whether it's holiday home or permanently or semi-permanently, and that does determine what you need furniture-wise. So we did speak to a lot of people. And as time developed, my mum sort of got her own fan base. of people that would come in and they weren't going to buy furniture. They was coming in to see your mum and find what she was doing now. Because then she started to, the job was part-time, not full-time. So it meant she had time to do things, and she started to do things, didn't you, Mummy?
Well, and also, you know, we have a lot in common. We have a lot in common, haven't we? The people who are moving out.
Yeah.
It's like gather unto you those of like minds, really. You know, you sort of find that you have got things to talk about and shared issues and things. And I mean, where we were living, it was just by chance, really, that we were living where we lived, that we were in the middle of about 8 golf resorts, 6 or probably 8, that were being built at this time. And the Murcia, which was the nearest village to us, I mean, we had to drive everywhere. You know, we had no shops and bars. But the village itself, La Teresa, was a lovely, and still is a lovely village. And so they were building 2 golf resorts down there, weren't they? One never actually happened, but it was United Golf and then La Teresa. And then they did Raquelme, Sierra Golf, Torre, all the one that you worked on.
I think Claris themselves, they built some properties.
Yeah. So although people, they weren't all coming over to live and retire, they were actually, you know, using them as holiday homes.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, there were lots of things that we did have in common.
Yeah.
And so working in the shop was quite a big aspect of the social life, if you like. I mean, Roy was quite happy, my husband. He retired and he was quite happy. At the same time, some friends of ours, well, the guy where we used to keep our horse, I mean, it's coincidence. I do believe in coincidences, actually. But him and his wife had separated. He met somebody else, and they came and stayed in our house to see if they liked Spain, and they did. So they bought, not far from us, didn't they, as on Brian? Then, because when we came over right in the beginning, 2001, there weren't many English people here in that region, in that area. So there was about 10 of us, you know, and so socially we used to meet up and we had a good social life. But then as the village started expanding, they built new houses and apartments and all sorts. Of course, a real community of British people, mainly British at the time. It's different now, it's very different now, but certainly then. And they did all sorts, you know, they joined in the fiestas and everything. So we had quite a good social life there too.
It was a low proportion of the population, but there was enough. There was enough people to have your own social group if you needed it.
Yeah.
When you were still part of Spain.
Yeah.
So it wasn't that you suddenly started to have events that were English. It's just that the English were invited into the events that were Spanish.
Yeah.
So the fiesta, you know, and they did. They were sort of open arms. Like they wanted to join them.
Yeah.
So
they had an international day, and that was when we organised. I say we, because I was quite busy with it. You know, we organised things that to suit everybody, really. Not wanting to change the culture or anything, but and they're quite happy about having an international day. Yeah, because their fiesta, La Teresa's fiesta, is one of the longest in Spain. It lasts about 3 weeks.
Oh, wow.
Honestly, because of course that was their holidays. You know, they didn't go away on holiday.
Yeah.
Villagers, they stayed in the village, but they had lots of things going on. You know, they brought the party to them, really.
Yeah.
The padron obviously helps the fiesta. So they got more money for fiesta because they have more padron.
Yeah.
So they got more meat gas, they got more flour because there were more people.
Yeah.
So that was
Like,
appreciated.
more the merrier.
Yeah.
So I think we were very lucky in that respect that, you know, we were part of this village community. Not that there wasn't a community on where we lived on Pino themselves, there was. But there were people mainly, the second homes, and there were people mainly who came from Madrid or Murcia. And they came during, maybe when it became spring, they'd start coming at the weekends in Semana Santa. And then they were there all summer. I mean, we had a communal pool, tennis courts, football field. But then they went. And then there was just...
You were the first foreigners on that resort.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not resort, it's not.
No, it's not. So,
But what they appreciated was the fact somebody was there all the time.
Yeah.
So, you were very welcome. That I felt, that they were, when they did come in the summer, they invite you to the barbecues and everything because they appreciated the fact that you were there all the time.
Yeah.
So if there was an issue, you could contact somebody and say.
I used to tell the chair about Roy, my husband, Roy, he didn't learn a lot of Spanish. He tried, but he wasn't that
He
good
needs
at
cerveza.
it. Hey?
He needs cerveza.
Well, the thing was, he knew agua. He knew hola, he knew agua, and he knew cerveza. Yeah. This particular day, he was walking, and they called him, what did they could have called him? The vigilante. Vigilante, because he walked around with the dogs.
Oh, yeah.
Walked around with the dogs, you see. And this particular day, he was walking around. He thought he was shouting, hello, hola. In fact, he was shouting agua. So he said, going going, agua, agua, agua. Well, they all thought we had leaks. So they
Aw.
Really, we'll have to check the water now.
the water, what's happening with the water, yeah. So I think, again, it's a lot of it's look into, really, that you end up in an area like we have done. And you can, either make friends very easily and quickly, or they're there. And that's what happened with us. We made friends very quickly. We had family. The other thing that happened was that Jane, my daughter-in-law's mum and dad, came over to live. And so, that we had a big family unit. My nephew and his wife came over to stay. And they liked it, and then they bought, so they're quite local. So there wasn't a lot to miss, really.
That is a big thing that if you are retiring here, is your family, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, the main reason that a lot of people go back frequently and then perhaps sometimes eventually permanently is because of family.
Yeah.
Whereas with us, it's effectively all our family was here.
Yeah.
So we didn't have that, don't we?
As your children start to have grandkids and you
Yeah.
miss them and
Yeah.
things like that, but
Yeah.
you had yours here.
Yeah, and of course the children were going to Spanish school, so we got into the Cecina community, which was where the school was. And we went to all the concerts and everything that there was going, and the parades and things, Having the children helped, I think, because it did mean you met another, and certainly probably helped to Jane as well, because you were meeting another group of people.
Yeah. And usually Spanish as well. When they go into public school, it kind of embeds you a little bit more into the Spanish community, doesn't it?
We would go into the church and it had three, it's always had 3 bars, all Spanish. And they've always welcomed, they welcome the trade to start off with because, we do tend to drink a lot more than Spanish people. But as the kids grew up, that they would see, we would go down and they would go and play with their Spanish friends. And so you just become a part of the village. One of the things I remember vividly is the number of people, Spanish people who, when my dad died, who, were genuinely upset that he died. He became a character in the village and they just accepted him. And that was lovely, And for me, I was glad that it didn't have an English bar.
Yeah.
Because everybody goes into the Spanish bars.
Yeah. And still do.
And still do.
Yeah.
And they're great places to meet. And they're great places to meet people. And also the thing is because it was a country property, if you needed a field ploughing or something, you'd go to the bar and you'd ask who plows the field.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Within 10 minutes, somebody'd come and talk to you and then go and do it. We had the plumber, the electrician, we're all local people, which is great. Not taking over, you weren't taking over jobs, they were using the locals to do the jobs. And I appreciate that. And then there is still a very good relationship between the expats and the Spanish in the church because of that, because I think everybody sort of accepted it.
Yeah.
It seems to be a thread throughout the podcast, doesn't it? Like when your kids make friends with Spanish people, they do much better and they learn the language quicker.
Yeah.
You know, when your kids are in a Spanish school or in school over in Spain, you're meeting other parents who are Spanish. The parents tend to do better. The more you're embedded into the Spanish community, you seem to do much, much better, don't you? I think the people who maybe don't like us so much is when they kind of stay in that little bubble, you know, of maybe wherever they come from, whether it be an Irish bubble or an English bubble. I think you do much better, or you enjoy your life over in Spain more when you do get involved with the Spanish community culture.
Both. We do both.
I think whatever.
Why? You know, I'm not saying Sunday lunch is not great. English breakfast, go and watch football in the pub, watch the Premiership or whatever. Great. But also on a different day, do something else. You know, don't have one thing.
Yeah.
It's not going to be as good as England. That English thing is probably, but. You know, it's going to be a lot better than Spanish thing. So, you know, make it more. You know, make more of it than trying to like departmentalize it.
Yeah, I know. When we first moved over to live, I missed libraries. Now they're all libraries, but there were no English section in the library. And so I did start going into the one in San Javier, the library in San Javier, this was before second-hand shops, so no second-hand shops when we came. So, well, you can get books now. So I started going to this library hoping that there might be some, you know, I had to find it. And of course, at that time, I couldn't speak Spanish. I had some sort of a conversation with the lady on the desk. And she said, no, there are no books in English. And I said, would you like some? Because I brought some books over with me. And she said, yes. It surprised me. So I set up a shelf of English books in San Javier's library. And then, of course, I got books from various sources. And so I took them in. And eventually, I don't know whether it's still there or not, but eventually I got this award for setting up this English section in the library. They did a presentation and everything. I don't know whether it's still there. But then what happened then was that some of the second-hand shops opened like Mavs, Cruise, that's all, places like that. And you could exchange your books. So, and actually the books you get from those places are quite good, because that's what people bought on the plane. So they're recent books. So it's quite a good method of getting books. I also missed the cinema. Yeah, it was the cinema a lot. And they opened this cinema down in Los Alcázares, Los Morejos. And that was great. You know, we really loved it because they had all of the latest up-to-date films on.
Just one day a week.
And they also, on a Thursday, they did this live streaming of operas and all sorts from Australia and everything. Sydney's opera house and also. It was great. It's closed again. It's sad.
COVID it was. I run them.
COVID, I think, made a big difference.
It was COVID, did them in. They never recovered after COVID.
And then Iceland opened. That was another, because although that Paul says, although, you know, you're here and you want them to embrace Spanish culture, you still have got, especially if you're older, you're set in your ways, aren't you? You're going to still want hands to multicultural, aren't you, or whatever.
English tea,
and those things. So that did help, really, being able to.
Particularly for me at the celebration times. So for the kids, Easter eggs, selection boxes, things for Christmas. You know, that wasn't available anywhere else. And that made it now. Which is great, because it's just like I said before, you know, there are certain things that are great about England, and so it's good if you can get them.
But you kind of have to pick your things, don't you? Because they're like 4 times the price.
I want to give them a shout out now, overseas, because they've just put Morrison's in, and the prices are excellent.
Oh, good.
So there was, you know, I went for malt vinegar. And I got about 6 litres for €1.20. I was amazed. So yeah, no, give them a shout out for that because that is good.
Yeah, so I was working, and as I say, I'd got my family, our family, and we had all that, and we got friends locally and so on. I also set up a swimming club called GITS, which was Gear Trio Swimmers. Because when I was in England, I ran swimming magazine branch in Canterbury. I trained to be a swimming magazine because I was always wanting to be thinner, and so I thought, well, I may as well do one here, you know. So I didn't know how it would go, so I set up this swimming club called GITS, and we just put posters on all the telegraph poles around and about in the area. And people cared, and so that was another gang, you know, another group of friends. And I did run it properly. We had lectures. They didn't even want to because they wanted to the pub after. But we did it at Falls then. They didn't really your house. Yeah. And away doing them, you know, and everything. And we had lectures, but we also said no. And we used to go to Benidorm for 2 or 3 nights. And I mean, we had
twice a year.
riotous times.
It's to save up to go and eat a lot.
Well, it was all inclusive. This is the thing. Because we're not far from Benidorm, are we? You know, and it's very different, is Benidorm to here.
God,
2 days,
like mine a day.
Probably 3 days, probably enough.
I would say definitely, yeah.
But we had some really good times. And so it was fairly easy to start things. You know, if you wanted to start something yourself, you could.
Well, I find that in the advertising for the business, you've got quite a captive audience, and there are very specific ways that you can advertise to the nationality.
Yeah.
So, you know, the Euro Weekly News, Spectrum FM,
Yeah.
you know, a very, very specific, really specific target market. So although you think there's perhaps not enough people, the people tend to be willing to travel further
Yeah.
to do something than perhaps they would in the UK. So when you do advertise, you know, you can get people responding that we have it with the people going to the shop, you know, 2 hours away,
Yeah.
driving to the shop.
Yeah.
And so, you know, if you are thinking of doing something in your retirement, like the swimming pool, you know, there are good ways to advertise that you can get people to come a distance.
Yeah.
So it's worth thinking about. And the importance of that is that you meet loads of new friends.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
We were talking about it in the Spanish language episode about how if you wanted to mix with people to learn the language, and there's nothing in your area, well, just start something. So find
Yeah.
Spanish people who want to practice English and English
Absolutely.
people who want to practice
Yeah.
Spanish.
And the thing is, you can, you know, the bars, it's different. The bars, they're not just bars, are they? They're bars and coffee shops.
Yeah.
And that's how we joined Connections, didn't we?
Yeah.
Connections was one where you know, groups of people met, and I joined
Spanish only.
Spanish and English, and you had a topic, and you talked in English for some of the time, and then tried to talk in Spanish some of the time, and same for the Spanish people, they were practicing their English. So I did that for quite a few years, Connections.
And they tend, like you were saying, they tend to be in places that are effectively free to use. So I went to 2 or 3 different ones, but they're always in the bar. They're always usually at the time when the bar would be quiet,
Yeah.
so sort of 5 until 7.
Yeah.
And the bar owners liked it because the organisers always used to say, you have to buy a drink.
Yeah.
You know, there's no charge for the course or anything, but you have to buy a drink.
Yeah.
And so the bar owners get something, they get some money in a town where they wouldn't normally get any money. But you meet different people. So if there's something you've got, an idea you want to set up, think about using a local bar, a local Spanish bar.
Yeah.
And they'll appreciate you going in and doing it. But there are a lot of venues that won't cost you anything if you want to start something up.
Yeah, which you might struggle for in the UK.
Yeah.
You know, if you're trying to start something like that. No, I mean here it was great, wasn't it? And in fact, they encouraged people to set up their own little groups because at that time they were realising that, you know, English, being able to speak English was an asset for Spanish people, as English people learning Spanish. I also joined an art school class in Sotina because, of course, all the towns and villages now still do evening classes. and things during the day. So, I mean, I'm not very sporty, but I joined yoga and Pilates. I also joined a language class, which I went to for about 3 or 4 years before I had more private tuition. They're still doing it because my friend Molly, she's retired, she's 81, she goes to Keep Fit. They do a sewing class, they do a guitar class, they do a language class. That's since this evening, you know, at the college, the community centre, during the day and evening. So again, for somebody retiring here, there's lots to do. I personally think there's far more than there is in the UK because a lot of the night school stuff is gone in the UK. And so, you know, if you want to better yourself in some way, you can do that.
A lot of those are not to do with language, are they? So, you know, you can pick up,
Oh,
you
yeah.
can go if you don't speak Spanish at the moment, and it will definitely help you Spanish.
Oh,
Yeah.
100%. Even like, you know, in the church, they do bingo on a Sunday.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know, and you can do bingo. You know, they have the screen with the numbers, so but you learn numbers quickly.
You're in
you
the
know.
numbers and you're in.
And you're mixing in, and it's not that you'll particularly learn a lot from the bingo calling, but it's the half an hour before and the half an hour after where you're still talking to Spanish and different people. That's where you benefit from it more.
Yeah.
And I know Molly particularly, you know, she doesn't have a lot of Spanish, but she communicates and, you know, she gets on with the people and they try, you know, the Spanish ladies who go for sewing particularly do try to talk with her and things themselves. So, and it's out, isn't it? You're going out, you know, that's the best.
It's a day to your day, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I still kept thinking I should use when I first, well, I've been over a few years, I should use this qualification, you know. So I started teaching the children in Lottie's class, the boys in Lottie's class after school, teaching them English. They'd be about 7 or 8. And of course, they didn't want to be there really, they were just playing out. I mean, who can blame them?
Yeah.
So I based a lot of what I did on games, playing games, and the language we used was associated, but it was still numbers and colours and everything, you know. And I did that for a couple of years at the request of the mums, really, because it's before they really put English on the curriculum.
Yeah.
I mean, it's there now, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it wasn't then. But the parents, some of the Spanish parents wanted their children to be learning English. You know?
Spanish parents are like obsessed with the
Yeah.
children having English, aren't they?
Yeah.
It's like all
Yeah.
they think about. Yeah.
And
It's really nice.
so we used to do it in one of the mum's houses, you know, in Sicily. Twice a week. I mean, I felt for the kids really. I tried to make it as interesting as I could. And then I also started working at the college in Torre-Pacheco at a language school. And I did that for a couple of years. It wasn't so much the teaching bit was fine, except they kept putting more and more children in. You know, little ones as well, like little 5-year-olds, 4 and 5-year-olds. So to plan for, even though it was like only 3 sessions a week, but the planning I had to do.
For so many different levels.
Yeah,
So hard.
especially the little
So
ones. I mean, you have the concentration of a gnat, really. You know,
Yeah.
5 minutes and then you have to change the activity.
Yeah.
Of course you did. So, but a lot of what I was doing before post-dad, before Roy Dad, was with Roy, and you know, it was a lot of it was associated with village and everything else, seeing groups of people. When Roy, that was when Roy was ill. Roy was very ill, and that's when I realised I really had to learn the language. You know, I really got to get to grips with it because we were going to the hospital pretty frequently. I mean, most of the specialists would speak English, actually, at specialist level. At the auxiliary level, where they were booking your appointments and things, they didn't. And, you know, that was more complicated. And I just thought, I'm going to have to get to grips with this. So I did, a few of us clubbed together and we paid for a private tutor who was very good. My opinion was very good. And I learned a lot. I learned a lot about the grammar, which eventually you have to have. You know, as much as you get by And Paul, you'd never really had any Spanish lessons.
I didn't know any English, am I?
No, but no, well, none of us did. We didn't use the terminology in England like they do here.
No.
No,
way.
I had no idea, and I taught English actually.
Yeah, I mean, even I'm doing. I did the native English like teacher's assistant, and they were like, "This week we're going to be doing the pressure tense and this,
pressure,
or we're
yeah.
going to be doing blooper." And I'm like, looking up,
Yeah,
what is
yeah.
this? And then once I looked it up, like, oh right, yeah, that's that. I know what it is now. But when they're using the terminology, I've never heard that before.
No, Rena, honestly, and so and that was as complicated. It's so much more. Isn't
Yeah,
it?
it's complicated.
Yeah. So I did actually learn. My problem is that I still want to get it grammatically correct, and you don't need to.
Yeah.
I'm proof of that. I'm proof you don't need to get it correct. Well, I'm not if I'm proof of that. Probably had 20 years of nobody understanding it.
Yeah. Yeah, so I realised that I would have to, I'd have to learn it. So I took it quite seriously, and I think I do all right. I mean, I do wonder sometimes what they're hearing when I'm saying it, But it has stood me in good stead, and I would say that I think that's really important that if you're coming over and you're retiring, that at least one of you tries to get to grips
Well,
with
that's
the
a good
language.
idea to get a few people together and
Yeah.
get a private tutor between you, then you're not paying so much. You can get a good tutor because you can pay a little bit more because of the salary you're paying for it.
Yeah.
Just make sure you're all at a similar level when you do it. Yeah. So when my dad died, then obviously meant then that you had more time because you would have been a lot later
Yeah.
before he died.
Yeah.
So what did you start to do then that you hadn't done before?
Well, loads of things. This was the thing.
This is where the episode starts.
Yeah.
Well, the thing was that Roy was very gregarious. My husband was very gregarious. He loved going out. He was a party animal. And I mean, we had golf lessons. We did all that. We did all the going to all the fiestas. We did all that. And I mean, he carried on for as long as he could, actually, during even, a sort of like a couple of months before he died. We were still going out socially. But we were always together, so I wasn't doing much on my own, if you will. After he died, I did stop work for a short spell. After he died, I did go back to work. I decided that, I needed to work. I needed to be quiet. I mean, it is hard because, I think what I found hard, it was the first time I'd ever lived on my own. From being a girl to being married to I was living, having children, always somebody there, somebody else there. And then suddenly you're on your own. You're totally on your own. I mean, I had animals, and that's another story. But I was living in a pinewood in a house with. I didn't mind it. I've got to say, it didn't frighten me.
Not mine now. So by then, so that was 2018.
Yeah.
There were, I'd say, 4 permanent residents there. Because I mean, if that had been 15 years previous, you would have been there on your own.
Yeah.
For 9 months of the year. I mean,
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
Sure enough.
I made good friends with Gloria, my Spanish neighbour.
Yeah.
But she
But she wasn't there all the time. Debbie and Phil, who lived on the next in that lane, Debbie is still my good friend now, and Phil. So they were there. Should I leave anything? Brian and Hazel weren't too far away. And I mean, it is about networking when you're here, and especially
It's something you have to think about, isn't it? You
Yeah.
think about when you move here, what's the situation going to be in 15 years, 20 years? Something's going to happen.
yeah,
The community.
yeah. And so, but Roy said to me, and he said, you've got to still keep going out. You've got to join things, and I'd always wanted to be in a panto because my friend was in it. But at the time when I found out about the panto, it's actually now called the Adapt Theatre Group. It was Adapt on its own before, but now it's adapted theatre group. But at the time when I found out about it, it really wasn't well, and I just couldn't commit to being in Anto. So that was one of the first things I did. Where after he died, I joined the panto. I went along. My friend was there. As it happened, she didn't stay long, but I joined, and immediately, you know, although it's only for sort of 3-4 months of the year, immediately you're into another situation where you're meeting new people.
Spanish and English.
Yeah, I'd like to point out it's a bilingual theatre group. So, and it's not like the Spanish are speaking Spanish and the English are speaking English. No, it's the English speaking people who speak in Spanish and the Spanish speaking people have to speak in English. So it's really pushing yourself to, you're all so brave. Like I did just think you're so brave, like getting up on the stage and speaking in in your second language, everybody in their second language.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. You really put yourselves out there. You know, it looks like, oh God, it's amazing, but it looks like it'd be really nerve-wracking. I would be really nervous. And then if I find when I go, maybe it's the time that I go because I bring Max. So I go, it's nearly all Spanish in the audience.
Yes, it is.
They love it.
Matinee.
Yeah.
They love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
So it has to be in. It has to be in.
Because it's a panto, it's jokes. It's
Yeah.
also telling a joke in a foreign language.
So
It's
it lasts.
hard enough to get a laugh. When you're in your own language, not like.
Jane Cronin, who writes them. Jane is, she was quite popular at the time when we came out. She was really,
Yeah, no, she was the go-to linguist.
she was doing classes and.
Did she have something on the TV as well?
Yeah,
I'm
she-
sure
she
I
is-
see
she's an
programs with her.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's a comedian and everything. You know, Jane. So she was very aware, and I mean, ADAPT itself was an association that was about that, adapting, you know, really recognizing Spanish culture and enjoying it, you know. And so she was very aware when she was writing it that it had to fit in with Spanish humor, which might be different, you know. And so we're very conscious of it. We are very conscious of it. So I joined that group. I also joined, because I can sing. I used to sing in the UK. I was in Berlin Light Opera and things like that. I joined Philharmonics, which is a barbershop chorus, a cappella group. I went to badminton. I actually fell at badminton and broke another bone in my back,
Oh,
so I had to stop that particularly. I joined art classes. Yeah, I really decided I was going to go for it. You know, and really sort of.
Whenever I sort of say to them, shall we like for lunch? It's like, oh, I'll get back to you. Oh, I've got
my diary.
15 minutes in 3.5 weeks on Tuesday if you can fit into the series. I think I'm joking. I'm not joking.
Because, and also, of course, once you join something like that, you get roped in. And it's like any organisation, you know, there are jobs to be done, aren't there? The good thing about having an association in Spain is that if you do all the paperwork and if you jump through the hoops really, but if you do all that and you become an association, you can actually use the premises for free. Local government premises. So for instance, with the ADAPT Theatre Group, we used the theatre at the library.
Yeah.
You know, the theatre upstairs. With the singing, we're in Dolores, and we had a stage and a theatre that we're rehearsing. So we get to practice what it's like standing on the stage and singing out. They're great facilities, you know, and generally, I mean, if you go to Las Faras, for instance, I've just joined another group, El Ritmo del Sol. There's coffee shops there and everything, you know, and it's a community centre in Las Faras. And people just go there, have the breakfast or sit and have a coffee and a friend chat. It's great for being older, isn't it? You know, to have these things that you can do.
We're going to put on, at the end of the clip, we'll put the contacts for each of the different groups.
Brilliant.
because in a lot of cases they're looking for new members all the time.
Yeah.
So if you want to join, we'll put I think it's we'll put Facebook on, I think.
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
group, so that you can get
Facebook, yeah.
information on there.
And if anyone wants in different areas, because of course this is for the area that we're in, but if anyone wants to promote any groups or organizations like this in your area, wherever you're listening in Spain, feel free to send us an email at hello@spainfullyhonest.com and we'll promote those groups.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because, there's lots of things, I hear lots of things, but there's lots of things I don't do, I don't do any sporting activities, really. And there's all those things out there, there's badminton, tennis, paddle.
Paddle's
Golf-
huge.
golf's- golf's a big
Golf.
thing,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pickleball is growing as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Pickleball is, I don't even know what it is, but I'm hearing it everywhere.
I read about
Pickleball.
it. And sailing clubs, and then there's all the charity stuff we can get involved in, charity organisations like MAPS, which basically do help support people who've got cancer.
Yeah.
And, they're always looking for people to help in the shop or help with events.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
Like drivers,
Yeah.
and help at home.
Yeah.
There's no shortage of charity things
Yeah.
that you could do, actually.
And for all levels, there's a charity at the moment that's a dog shelter. And they've got really shy dogs who are really struggling. So if you're thinking, I wouldn't be able to manage with the dogs, or I wouldn't be able to, bring them for walks, they're literally just looking for people to go and sit with the shy dogs and just pet them and give them treats. I mean, that's at all levels of volunteering you can do. Like,
I was going to say that, the dog organisations such as the Galgos and
There'll be
Massive Piano.
one here who's very, very active, but I'm sure there will be ones all over, because that's the greyhounds that they use for hunting.
Yeah.
And so, have been used for hunting and then either become gun shy or too old. I'm sure in virtually every area of Spain there will be somebody doing that charity.
Yeah, I would say so.
And like I say, we can either just be with them or walk them. I mean, I just stayed I went to Los Infiernos and I walked the dogs there. For some of those dogs, that walk they get there is the only time they're out, really. The only time they're out.
You might move to, you might be in an apartment so you can't have a dog easily, and that's a really nice way of for yourself and for the dog, obviously.
Yeah.
And I'm sure wherever you're living in Spain, there'll be somebody doing that.
For
you.
sure.
Really appreciate your help. And things, like blankets after the summer, all that sort of thing. And ways to find them through the local newspapers and things like that. You'll find out where those shelters are and who's doing it.
Yeah, I know for me, when I'm writing for this area's paper for the Your Weekly News, we always make sure to cover, if they're looking for volunteers or if they're doing fundraising events. So in those local newspapers, you'll find lots of information.
Well, I think the newspapers are a great thing because they're free, aren't they?
Yeah.
That's the first thing. And there's so many different ones. And if people are looking for things to do, there's always things in there as well that are advertised. And as I say, all the sporting things, all the water sports you could do.
Yeah, the worst.
That we have here at our fingertips, really.
Most of the social centres that you go to, so the Central de Salud, are in virtually every village, or every area. They all have a notice board and things like that as well.
Yeah, the library, the health centre, all of them, the social centre.
Iceland's always have a notice board.
And what's those things that they play as well as pools and
Pools.
the tank that isn't Spanish, isn't it? Or is it the same thing, or that
This is, it is more or less.
Yeah.
Right now we're in a
Yeah,
time.
I love that over
Just
nothing.
need to be Chiringuito.
It's very special. Lots of
Particularly here on the beach. Get a few people start throwing them out. People will start watching, and then the Spanish will come and watch, tell you you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
And then they'll join in and show you to do it right.
Well, we used to go up to the hotel, didn't we, in Los Narcos?
Yeah.
And a few, 8 of us, 10 of us would go. We'd always have a game at the tank. Well, we drew an audience.
When they were sat by the end, there'd be 30 people sat on the wall watching them play balls. Really
So at the beach, people end up sitting on the wall watching, don't they? And even in the little parks, you'll see they have the set up
The
to
tank
play.
areas,
the little
that's right.
areas, You kind of don't notice it until you're looking for it, but if you look for it in your local park, you'll probably find one.
Yeah.
And you could just say to your neighbours of whatever nationality, do you fancy the game?
Yeah,
That's
no
what-
else to play.
That's why I think there is so much you could do, you know, really. You move out here to retire. And you might have to seek it out a little bit, but there's,
Because the great thing is it's not affected by weather in the same way as it would be in the UK.
no.
So if you say you're going to play Patank next Tuesday, you'll play Patank next Tuesday probably, rather than for some kind of loin hoolie. But the chances of it happening, you know, it's going to happen what you do, and you're not having to find somewhere indoors to do it. And so you're not having to pay for it.
Yeah.
In most cases.
I think though that's another thing, you know, if you have got a pet, a dog especially, you have to take your dog out and everything, and you meet all the dog walkers and you chat to them, you know, it might just be hello, you know, and that's another way really of getting to know another group of people.
Well, they
Really.
come
Yeah.
down. They come
Yeah,
down.
and they are good company, you know, because I think, I know we're going to talk about it in the future, but I think you have to think about what happens next. You know, if you do end up on your own, what do you do then?
Important thing to think about, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think it's
Yeah.
something that people don't think about when they're moving to Spain. You think about the moment you're in.
Yeah,
You don't think about, well, if we're moving here and our life is going to be here, well, what's my life going to look like in 5 years? What's it going to look like in 10 years?
yeah,
You know, what do I want my life to look like in 10 years? So
yeah,
you have to plan for it. And something that I think from listening to you, you really put yourself into it, you know, like you really put yourself out there in a sense of you try lots of things and you learn the language and you've done lots of different jobs while you've been here and you just really give it your all, like, you know, and because of that you have lots of friends and you have a great community and you
Yeah.
speak the language and, you know, and it's just a great, I think, inspiration to people out there to do something similar to you.
yeah. I think you have to, you know, it's a bit like, you know, if it's to be, it's up to me.
Yeah.
And that's I think what you've got to do. Nothing's going to be handed to you there. You actually got to, and sometimes you've got to do things like I've been secretary to various organisations and president and all sorts of things. I didn't particularly aim to be doing that, you know, but that's what comes sometimes with being in an organisation, that you have to share some responsibility.
Yeah.
And be a bit accountable, really. But I expect that there's still a lot to do, you know, there's loads to do.
So tell us, what does your week look like now? Like, what would you tell us what you're doing on your week?
We had to give her a month's notice to come on in.
Well, I do honestly try to see my friends sort of about every 2 or 3 weeks, if I can. And we meet for coffee, or they come down to me, or I go to them. So I will be seeing people for and actually the great thing here is that, you know, you can have a cup of coffee and you sit by the sea, and it's just lovely. And you're over there, and then there's no pressure on you to be buying another one or anything like that. And you catch up.
Couple of euro.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you catch up. It's great. You're outside, you're chatting. It's lovely. So I always try, and I always make a point of trying to, you know, sometimes we'll go for lunch, sometimes, but no need to. We can, you know, our coffees just works.
Yeah.
And it's out. I mean, now I've got something nearly every morning because my panto starts tomorrow, rehearsals start tomorrow. I'm in another singing group on a Thursday morning, so I sing on Thursday morning. Friday I have art. So if you join for one thing, you could find yourself doing all the other things.
With something like that, you could turn that into a little industry. You know, you could do the markets if you learn. You know, if you already got that ability, or you could learn an ability to do something.
Yeah,
else.
Linda and I, my friend, would learn how to make resin jewellery, and we have. And, you know, we do resin jewellery and also coasters and bottle openers and things like that. And we just haven't, we generally do it on a charity stall. And we'll perhaps do 1 or 2 in the season, really. Paint bags, all sorts. So that's on a Saturday night, one of my rehearsals for singing, my Philharmonics, I think it's going to be a Saturday morning. So I'll be going singing Saturday morning, and that can incorporate lunch, you know, because again, you can afford to eat out a little bit more, It's not costly. And actually, Spanish restaurants are really good at sharing, doing portions. I mean, I find that I can't now. I don't want to eat now a starter and a main meal and a pudding. So I might just have a starter and a pudding. Or I might have 2 starters. And, or I can share it with another, they bring in another plate.
Yeah.
They're very flexible, actually. And so that's it, really. My weeks are...
That's it.
They're busy.
Yeah.
And then walking the dog.
And I have to
4
walk
times a
my
day.
dog, I have to walk my dog because I live in an apartment, so I have to take him out. And I like taking him out. I take him with me wherever I can because he was a rescue dog.
Oh.
And he's very timid. But he does like people.
Because you sit outside, when you do go for a coffee, you can take the dog.
Yeah.
Because you sit
And you'll find
outside.
that everyone does. Everyone
Yeah.
has a dog will have their dog sitting under the table with them. And the restaurants will bring you a water for your dog.
Oh, they do.
and all
They
sorts.
do, yeah, they're great, actually. They're busy times, but great. It's a great life, actually. I can recommend it.
Do you want to give a shout out to your panto?
Yeah,
Is anyone
so-
in the area?
Yeah, so the panto this year is Jack and the Beanstalk. And it's on at the New Theatre. Quite got the name, yeah.
Jelly Alvarado, I think that's called, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's named
Yeah.
after an actress from San Pedro del Pinatar.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah,
It's fast, 500.
Yeah.
very nice.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it. I go every year. I'll be there.
Catherine and Max are really
Yeah.
ardent followers of the panto, yeah. This time, because it's such a big theatre we used to, well, still we're rehearsing, is a lot smaller. We're doing 3 performances. That's on the, I think it's 29 and 30th, I have to check actually, of November.
Yeah.
So there's a performance on the Friday night, and then there's a Saturday matinee, and then a Saturday night.
Yeah.
That weekend, and it's great. And we're always looking for people to join the panto group all the time, but certainly we're looking for people to buy tickets.
Yeah.
Tickets are very reasonable. It's a nice out.
It's a charity, isn't it?
It's for charity, we give it all to charity.
Well, we've
We're-
got the
yeah.
address. We've got the,
Yeah, put the link for the tickets if you want, because you
Yeah.
can buy them online this year,
Yeah.
can't you, as well?
I think so.
I'm sure I saw a link to them
Yeah,
online, but if
yeah.
there is, we'll put all the information at the end and in the show notes, so you can click on it. If there's something clickable, we'll put it in the
Yeah.
show notes
Yeah.
as well. So if you want to go, you can go.
Philharmonics, we're always looking for new members to sing. And they're a great group of women, and we don't just sing, we go out socially. We do go into competitions, but that's not, it's not mandatory. We have weekends away, so I think everything you join, you build in, there's a social side.
Yeah.
There's always a social side.
And it sounds like when you join one thing, you almost find
You do.
well, you often meet people like mine, and they probably do other things as well. Yeah.
I mean, we recently had a promotion for the panto. Some of the people who came along, I've seen them now since then, just round the streets, down near where I live,
Yeah.
And I know that if I needed to, I could go out socially again. There's lots of opportunities.
With the panto, it's not just acting, is it? So they also need people for backstage,
Yeah.
technical people, for the lighting and
Technical
sound and everything. So
yeah.
you could do it if you come as a couple, one likes acting, the other one might
Yeah,
do something
well,
else.
we've had people like that too. Yeah, and making props and everything. But yeah. So yeah, that'd be great.
so. Well,
It's the last question.
My last question,
We
yeah.
always have this one question. We always ask
Yeah.
everybody that comes on. If you were to give one piece of advice or something to people who are thinking about retiring to Spain, what would it be?
Well, I've actually tried to build 3 pieces of advice into one sentence, really.
all the advice.
Yeah. My first bit would be to research your area. Just research your area, where you're thinking of buying. And although it's not always easy, you can talk to people about it. And talk to people who are obviously living there locally. Because there have been instances where people have bought houses on floodplains, and it's flooded their house, and seriously flooded their house, not just once, a few times. Now, if somebody went there to that particular estate now and asked about buying, I'm sure they'd be told about it. I think it's cured now, but So I would say, I mean, we have an example of this. The apartment I live in is lovely, and it's great, and I love the outlook because it's all looking over the rooftop. But there's a club underneath it, which you've no idea about, because during the day when you go looking at the property, it's
In
not
this
open.
case, it's a bar.
It's a
In
bar,
this case, it's a bar.
and it's not open. And we know from experience that we've had to be quite firm
Yeah.
about it. So I would say, you know, if you can, possibly, do as much finding out as possible. So that's the first bit. The second bit is, I think you've got to aim to learn the language. I'm not saying become absolutely fluent, but at least be able to have, you know, hello, good morning, how are you okay, how's your family? It's polite, it's caring about where you live. So I would say, you know, even if you do it online, however you do it yourself, just try to learn the language. And finally, keep up with technology, because it's on the move. I mean, currently we still use cash in Spain, but if you look at other countries, it's changing fast.
Yeah.
And so banking online and things like that, you've got to learn how to do it, and therefore you've got to keep up with technology. It's just a while here, at least if there's a couple coming. I would say, you know, keep up to date as much as you can, because in another 10 years, who knows where we'll be, really.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. Great tips.
Okay.
Brilliant.
Thank you, Mummy.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And again, just to shout out to anyone who wants to share a club they know about, or if you have an organization, a charity that you want us to highlight, that feel free. Or if you have any questions or suggestions for topics for another episode, just send us an email at hello@spainfullyhonest.com.
Yeah. Oh, great. Yeah, like Catherine said, if you're doing something or you want to set a group up for something, send us the information and we'll see if we can promote it for you.
Definitely. Cool.
Thank you. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. So, thanks for listening to Spainfully Honest.
If you've got any questions or stories or something you'd like us to talk about in future episodes, we'd love to hear from you.
Just drop us an email at hello@spainfullyhonest.com.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.